Catus, Maximus here, this time with a quick review of this $5 carbide tip scribe. I picked this up because I like the idea of a carbide tip scribe. The scribes that I've always used and actually recommend are these little American-made General brand scribes, and they are just the quintessential scribe with just excellent knurling, very hard steel, nice rounded tip. These are the type of scribes that you'd buy 5 or 10 at a time because they're really that good. These little general scribes I absolutely love. But I did see at the orange box this Empire. And a couple of things that caught my eye. One, made in India, and that's from Empire. So more Indian tools, trying to pull away from some of the Chinese tools, I guess. Another thing is, pop clip. It has a magnet, but it's, even though it's rare earth, it must be a super thin one because it will work, but it's just not very strong. Kind of weak for a little magnet in there, but it is kind of handy that it does have a magnetic pickup tool. What's interesting is they point to the rare earth magnet as being in the middle of the unit, where it's actually at the end. So, I always love criticizing packaging. That's all this is it's just a scribe just like one of these tools, and just offering a harder tip. So when you want to scribe things that are harder materials, even like these chrome plated sockets, you can scribe with a normal scribe, but it's a very thin line. You got to press pretty hard, and of course it dulls out the tip. So of course carbide is much harder. It can be 10 Rockwell 10 points or more, quite a bit harder. So you use a carbide scribe, and it just digs in there. Just a huge difference. And this general scribes really are like the standard, pretty high quality scribes. So that's really the whole deal with this Empire. Is it simply and what it appears to be some type of coated carbide, making it just work a lot better on many materials that standard scribes just, have a tough time with. And I do like that. Of course, being carbide and all that hardness brings brittleness. One of these, you drop on the ground, it's just no problem. This unit here, if it drops on the ground, lands near on the tip, or on the tip, it's more than likely going to break it off. And so that's one thing. You have to be a little bit more careful because of that brittleness. But overall, I have to say that this unit really isn't that bad. We can look at the knurling on the body across the whole thing, and it's actually pretty well done. Pretty decent job knurling. The knurling on the front part is also pretty decent. If we take this off, we can actually see that we can replace the tips. I don't know where you'd buy these little tips from, but they appear to be just little 1/8 inch bits of carbide, and they just have a little split anvil that's machined into this steel body. That is not a carbon finish. It appears to be actually painted black, which is kind of interesting. But I do like the idea that you can replace the tip. It does hold it pretty well. I'm not super fond of pocket clips on scribes, although I can understand it would be handy, not just for holding onto your pocket, but of course helping prevent it from rolling away. I'm kind of a person has less preference for the pocket clip, so I do like that this is just easily threaded, and you could quickly pop that off. And although it would have made sense, unfortunately they didn't make this hole. This hole is only just deep enough for these threads. It would have made sense that you could have ordered extra tips and then kept them inside the scribe. So maybe they'll change that in the future version. But I kind of like them when they're more traditional like this, where they're just a straight barrel. But that's great. It's the optional, so you can take that clip on and off. And so that's really just a deal. It's just something for you to do marking and lines, primarily on metal and other hard materials. But versus, steel scribe, even, really nice. This is probably made out of 1095 drill rod, which can get super hard for steels. Rockwell 65. If we try to do something, say, glass, which is quite hard, we just can't get any progress at all on that. But with a carbide scribe, it just no problem. You could just hear it scraping in there. And then there's our, I already lost it. There's our little scrape from the carbide scribe. So that's really the big advantage, is you'll be able to mark things like tile, glass, ceramics, and all sorts of stuff that even a high quality, very hard steel scribe will just skate across. And even though this little Empire is Indian made, it's actually seems pretty nice. So I really do like the steel body on that, just because it gives it a little bit of weight. a bit of heft, and just gives it a bit more solidity. And surprisingly enough, out of all the companies that actually sell something like a Carbide Scribe in stores, it turns out to be Empire out of all of them. You would think there'd just be, Milwaukee and all these other companies would have things like Carbide Scribes, but they don't. So as far as what's available, this is the first one I've actually seen on any store shelf. You can find them online everywhere, but just, in a retail environment, these things aren't particularly common. So I'm kind of happy that Empire's pushing these and getting people just a little more used to scribes that hold up a little bit better. And if you use these for more normal type of operations, such as scribing metal, etc., then another advantage of the Carbide is it has the potential to last much longer due to that additional hardness. That, and they gave it a pretty sharp tip. These can be resharpened, but you do need silicon carbide or green grinding wheels. You can use aluminum oxide grinding wheels, but the Carbide tends to grind away the wheel pretty quickly. Anyway, just thought this was a cool little Carbide Scribe with a handy little magnetic pickup tool that really should be a lot stronger than it really is, although it is sufficient. It's sufficient, but it could be better. But for $5, a neat little Carbide Scribe. I guess the only other thing you could really mention is, since it is so sensitive to having the tips broken off, I think they probably should have made the tip that comes with it double-ended, so that way if you had trouble and did break the tip off, that you could have just flipped it around instead of having to hunt around another tip, or just buy a whole nother scribe. So anyway, that was my review of this neat little steel body Carbide tip scribe that I think is actually pretty cool. Still recommend normal scribes, but this is definitely a nice addition to the tool arsenal. Anyway, I really appreciate everybody who's been watching and subscribing. If you haven't subscribed, please do. Until next time, Catus Maximus out.